Life is hard for a washed-up video game developer. I mean, besides the fact that nobody watches my videos and I'm terrible at game development, I'm pretty sure that there is a global network of elites who are trying to keep me down. Anyway, this video is supposed to be about a video game, not my ongoing struggle against the powers that be. It turns out that life is hard for a washed-up video game developer. I've been working real slow, as you might have noticed from my upload schedule. However, importantly, I haven't stopped working on it. I have been thinking about how to improve the progression of the game. I made two surprisingly big changes in the last 2 or 3 months. For one thing, pieces can now be bought back for a small resource price. I'm probably going to have to alter the actual numbers because they're extremely lax and you'll basically never run out of resources to buy them with. This does stop the problem of getting absolutely wrecked immediately in the later levels, and you can't revive the king, so it's still got a little bit of challenge. It's definitely a massive buff to the player though, so I'm going to have to rebalance essentially everything around that. For one, it definitely needs to be more expensive, as I said. For another thing, it means I can make the enemy pieces themselves a lot tougher to reward having bought the upgrades into scale. I am consistently running into a real problem with this game though. At every turn there is practically zero skill-based gameplay. I do like the respawning system because it does actually resemble some kind of real-time interactive gameplay, and that's been lacking from what I've had so far. I've been constantly coming up with other ideas for injecting interactive gameplay into each match. So I've had a system which I may have mentioned before, which I'm calling magic spells. Something like casting a fireball to damage everything on a tile or maybe in a little area. Maybe something like a poison cloud for damage over time, or freeze to stop pieces from moving, that kind of thing. Maybe elemental abilities in general that influence the game. I think it's also important to be able to affect your own pieces, so maybe there's an element of skill in there too, I don't know. There is a part of me saying I should just go really deep into the elemental gameplay. I mean, having 10 different elements, give all of them fine-grained resistances and damage values. It does sound a bit crazy at this point in development, but I mean, it might be cool, I'm not sure. I do want to lean into that kind of fantasy aesthetic. In general, I'm not actually sure why I haven't added those magic spells yet. I mean, I have a couple of times, but I just keep taking them out. In their current form, I think it would be an even bigger imbalance in favor of the player, so I gotta kind of do these things in parts. And obviously the enemy is not going to be casting these spells, so they're just going to get tougher and weirder. In general, I do like the idea of the player having quite minimal control over the actual mechanics of the board. I mean, it's an auto-battler game. That's somewhat core to the game's identity. So the skill then comes in from trying to affect the board with these really rough, systematic effects. So you kind of have to think of ways to affect the enemies and not affect your own guys, or maybe vice versa, depending on what that effect is. Just giving everyone individual elemental resistances is one possible way of going about that, but it's a fairly complicated system, and clearly I have not integrated that at all at this point. However, I did make the upgrades system pretty versatile. Maybe there are ways to spend resources to adjust the elemental resistances for individual pieces. This could be something which is done in the ranch, which is definitely lagging behind the rest of development, but it's not forgotten about. I mean, it'll definitely be present in the final game. The alternative is to just design weirder spells that only affect certain piece types, certain sections of the board, etc. I mean, that would save me from doing 10 different elements and all the other stuff that goes with that. I mean, you could have impassable terrain, reviving pieces that die in an area, maybe reversing the damage dealt for a brief period, something like that. You could have spells that weaken rooks, you could have unholy water that weakens bishops. on both teams, so if you're running a team with purely bishops, you wouldn't want to use that one, but maybe you would if you were against a team that was mostly bishops. I'm not sure. Essentially, I've been kind of thinking of implementing some form of status effects to these pieces anyway, so it's not hugely far-fetched. It's not the easiest thing to think of these weird spells that would actually change up the game, so if you have any ideas, please let me know. I think another thing is that it might be a bit tricky to communicate what each of these spells do to the player. In general, I would say that's nothing that a little pop-up box with some text in it can't fix, but it still is important to be able to do. Anyway, I guess that's kind of the plan for later, and I'll need to think about it a little bit more. I'm still in the process of working out how to get those into the game without imbalancing or destroying the game flow. I need to really figure out what I'm doing with this. I do like the way that the game plays currently, so I guess I'm trying not to break it too badly straight away. It's in need of some fixing and some development, and it's gonna get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. But it's on the right track. The other thing I added to the game is the email client, and this helps to get a little bit of tutorial and guidance to the player, and it doubles as a record of their progress. I think it's made a big change to the sense of progression, since you can now see and reflect back on the last few playthroughs. Again, like everything, it needs some tweaking. Specifically, the text is a bit weird, but I'm reasonably happy with it. It's a good addition. The last bit of good news is that I have finally made a Steam app for this game. Only a few of you might know this, but I have been trying to make a Steam app since January, and I am constantly being foiled by the tax governance body in my country. At last, I have prevailed, and I was allowed to make a Steam app. That means I can now make a Steam page. Finally. It's not actually up soon, and I'll have to think about, well, essentially how to design all the art for it. I want it to look good, which unfortunately means I have to actually think about how to do it. So look out for that sometime in the next few months. At least I hope so. I mean, one of the good things about being a washed-up video game developer is that the expectations are so low that I can take forever to do anything, and it's kinda fine, because nobody expects me to do anything anyway. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Squid Chess. I think the game is slowly coming together, and I am kinda proud of it now, so keep an eye out for the Steam page, if you would like to. Goodbye.